as you can see. We are in Marche. Just a moment, the car is coming. The car is coming. As you can see, we are in Marche. We are making this video to give you an idea of what the footwear district is like here in Marche, where we produce our shoes and where, in any case, I have grown up professionally speaking. So that is Monte Granaro. Then here we are in Monte San Giusto, and over there you can see the sea. In a few words, this, guys, is the homeland of footwear. Here, each town makes a type of footwear. For example, Monte Granaro makes men's shoes, Monte Urano makes children's shoes, Porto San Delpidio makes women's shoes. In short, the district is quite extensive. As a result, around all these towns, other small companies have emerged that produce various components of footwear, such as soles, laces, threads, zippers, and so on. Therefore, the entire supply chain is internal to these towns. As you well know, Marche has become the footwear district par excellence in Italy because shoe production started early with historical references dating back to 300. Then, during the Industrial Revolution in the early 1800s, production began to increase significantly with the advent of the Singer sewing machine, as shoes were previously sewn by hand. Production expanded further around 1870. Up until the post-war period, the funds from America allowed many to create their own companies and start producing shoes on a global scale, because we must remember that in this area many shoes were and still are produced, which are then worn all over the world naturally. High quality shoes. We are in Monte Granaro and we are heading to the company. I wanted to show you that all these houses with various shops and bars underneath were full of small businesses and people who worked and made shoes. Those who sewed, those who cut, and everyone else all worked in the footwear industry. I assure you there were really a lot of people. In fact, in the early 2000s, when the footwear sector crisis began, many lost their jobs and had to reinvent themselves. No one has ever talked about this, and it saddens me, but I assure you that really many people have been left without a job. Then the people of Marche, I have to be honest, are a people who adapt, who work hard, who give their all, and in the end, they recovered. However, many people had to reinvent themselves. It all starts here, where there is a warehouse with various types of leather. Naturally, only top quality, first choice leathers are used, as well as first choice calfskin linings. For example, here we have the polished leather that we use to make our Catania model, which is a dark brown text. Even the brushed ones are of top quality, so they don't make those ugly lines that you see very often. The calf leather we use for various models comes from Spanish tanneries because, in our opinion, it is a very good production, which makes the shoe last much longer, is much easier to care for, and allows us to give the footwear itself a longer life. Here we have the first phase of shoe production. What happens in this machine is that the leather is placed, the light is turned on, and we go to see all the small defects that are on the leather. Here you see all the marks made on the leather, where there are various wrinkles and small defects, but they are not real defects, where the leather has to be absolutely discarded, also because it is top quality leather, so the leather is all good. But what do? It is a job done to avoid small defects during production. For example, the upper must be cut in a certain direction. Where there are these circles, the uppers are cut on the parts that are introduced underneath, not on the outside where they are not visible. Then, on the part, we have here, for example, where there is nothing. You see, it is all nice and clean. This is the butt, the rear part of the animal, which is the most valuable part. And here we can cut the upper however we like. This is a job that few undertake in order to provide an even higher level of service in shoe production. After marking all the defects in the leather, we go directly to the cutting machine. Alright, so this process can be done either by hand with dies. But here we have the machine where all the pieces are placed. It checks the leather and marks all the parts of the uppers. The bench here is a suction bench pulling down the leather and secures it. After that, the machine is now marking all the pieces with, let's say, a pen that marks Afterwards, he cuts the leather with a very fast vibrating blade. This is truly one of those machines that have significantly improved footwear production. Once the leather is cut, you see, for example, this piece here, this one then gets discarded, and we use this type of machine. I shouldn't say this, but I used to work in the family business, and my job was to thin the leather. In short, you place yourself here, discard all the pieces, and lower the level of the leather so that you can either do various reinforcements or glue the pieces together so they don't create thickness. Let me share a tip. All the cut uppers have small marks to indicate the size. You see this tiny mark. This corresponds to a size 41 because then size 42 has a 2, size 43 has a 3, and so on. What is this larger cut for? This is the cut that identifies the side of the shoe. The part with the large cut, for example this one here, is the part that goes on the outside, that is the outside of the footwear on the outer part of the shoe, while this one here is the inner part, and this is used to correctly identify the piece so that the stitching machine operator knows to place it on the outer part when sewing. Once we have cut and thinned the leather, it needs to be sewn. So there is the stitching phase. The stitching phase is done with various machines, including flat machines, column machines, and arm machines, among others. There are many other machines used for various other processes. In my opinion, this is the most difficult phase of shoe production because stitching is a highly specialized and very complicated job. If there are any poorly done stitches, they are noticeable. When I say the shoes don't stretch, why don't they stretch? Because a thermoplastic toe cap is placed on the front part like that, and then it is glued onto the front part of the shoe. In this way, the toe cap stays nice and precise, nice and firm, and it cannot be stretched or widened. So when your toes feel tight there, goodbye comfort, because nothing can be done. Once the upper is made, discarded, and so on, the upper that is sewn, here we have a moccasin, is placed on the sole, and then through the pre-lasting machine, which is a pretty big machine here behind me, the shoe is inserted, the leather is glued, this part here is glued, you see, the insole, and it pulls. Thank you. No, no, no! So here we have a machine that is absolutely amazing. It's a milling machine. In short, it mills the entire part that will then be glued. There's the underside of the upper, and then on this other side, there's the machine that applies a primer, a first coat. See? After that, the second coat is applied by hand. And then the sole is glued. The sole of our Rome or Como model, Palermo Catania, we use it a lot. Clipper leather sole, branded Ciccone, then there's also the number, of course. But here is our branded sole. Another process is the stitching of the sole to the upper. We place the bottom, glue it, and then we make a nice black stitch all around with this machine, with our dear black. What is the black stitching? It is a stitch made between the sole and the upper. And in this way, it doesn't move and lasts a long time. During the finishing phase, it is given a good polish, to remove the small marks created during the process. And a bit of cream is applied to restore the leather's shine. During the finishing phase, all shoes are naturally brushed. This is a phase that is also done in trouser making. You often see that when we sew the shoes, we pass the shoes under the brush precisely to bring the leather to life. Here we have our punching machine, both for stamping the insole that you see goes under the foot and also for stamping the soles. Now we will do a test, and I will show you how it is done. Here we have all our lasts. The lasts that are used to pull up the upper. The upper is pulled over this thing here, which is like a fake foot. Apart from the comfort of the shoe, it comes from this thing here, meaning if you have a suitable last with the right lines, a well-made shoe comes out, which remains comfortable on the foot. Naturally, there are many lasts. Each model has its own last. For example, we try to use the most suitable lasts based on the model, lasts that have been studied and tested over time. So for instance, our moccasin has one type of last. The Oxford shoe has another type of last. And the Derby shoe has a wider last. These are all lasts suitable for that type of model because a moccasin that is very wide at the front is not good as it can cause problems. Similarly, for the Oxford shoes, we use a last that is wider at the front so that the toes are more comfortable, unlike others who use very pointed lasts for Oxford shoes, which in our opinion cause problems. So what machine is this? This is a nice big machine just the way we like it, which is used for dyeing touches of dye and for applying waterproofing on suede shoes and shoes in general because of the water. Listen, let's start with the suction. The suction removes all the microparticles of varnish and waterproofing. Afterwards, everything that is not collected by the suction is gathered by the water, which then ends up in a system that continuously recirculates this water. This water is then taken to a tank outside, and occasionally a special waste truck comes by to load it and take it away. This process ensures that production is always very attentive to ecology as we see it.